Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're unpacking something truly radical. You know that dream we've all been sold for decades? The one that says, buy a house, secure your future, build your fortress? Well, what if I told you that entire dream is actually a trap? What if homeownership, as we know it, is basically built on a foundation of stakeholder greed? Today we are taking a deep investigative look into a fascinating research paper by Dr. Anil Darshkart called New Concept for Urban Properties. We're going to explore exactly how the current model extracts value from the common citizen at literally every turn. And more importantly, we're going to look at a sleek, visionary, and entirely new socioeconomic framework that actually solves it.
To really grasp the severity of this, I want to hit you right away with this stark quote straight from Dr. Darshkart's research. He writes, "Even in the democratic governance, the concept of trusteeship has vanished. Everything is considered as fair." Think about that. The research essentially argues that the real estate market has devolved into a war. It's a space where power and financial gains are just ruthlessly prioritized over what should be a basic human right to shelter. This isn't just basic supply and demand. According to the source, it's a virtual assault on the common man.
So how exactly are we going to dismantle this illusion today? Well, here's our roadmap. Number 1, the anatomy of greed. 2, the math behind the madness. 3, enter the non-ownership zone. 4, how notional housing works. And finally, number 5, redefining the housing market. Let's dive in.
Section 1. The Anatomy of Greed.
To actually solve this housing crisis, we first have to understand the mechanics of why it's so broken. And the source material argues the dysfunction stems from one simple fact. Every single stakeholder is trying to extract maximum value. It creates massive friction. Just look at the foundational greed at every level here. Everyone relies on this one omnibus document called the Agreement to Sale, right? But they all want the benefits without the burdens. Purchasers, well, they want total rights over their property but often shirk collective responsibilities. The state and its agencies, they want to extract maximum revenue through taxes and premiums but without delivering actual improvements in return. And developers, of course, want their profit, but they want to completely wash their hands of any post-occupation management. It's a completely disjointed system where literally everyone is out for themselves.
Now, the research points out a fascinating historical shift regarding the state's specific role in all this extraction. Back in 1858, under an alien government, stamp duty was introduced simply to cover the administrative costs of record management. It was basically just a utility fee. But jump ahead to 1985, and the democratic government modified this act. The purpose completely shifted. It went from maintaining a department to extracting advance revenue based on the future rising value of real estate. The state basically began treating your purchase as an opportunity to recover unearned gains in advance. It completely stripped away the whole concept of the state acting as a trustee for the public.
Section 2. The Math Behind the Madness.
Okay, we've talked about the theory of this greed, but now we need to look at the crushing financial reality. The numbers Dr. Darshkart provides are truly eye-opening. Look at this breakdown of the overlapping costs dumped onto a standard flat. What you are paying for isn't just bricks and mortar. Not even close. According to the source, basic construction and technical fees, they only account for about 25% of the burden. Meanwhile, various state premiums, specifically things like charging for floor space index or FSI, make up a staggering 50% of the cost impact. The research calls this FSI premium a camouflage of greed. Think about it. Planners originally used FSI to manage city growth, but now it's just a tool for heavy revenue extraction. Add in a 25% interest burden and another 25% for developer profits, land, and social costs, and you quickly see that a common man is paying an absolutely massive premium just for the so-called rights and comforts of ownership.
Let's ground this in a real-world example from the paper. Imagine a 1 BHK flat in Mumbai costing 100 lakhs. If you take a 60% loan, so 60 lakhs, at an 8% interest rate, your annual interest payment is 4.8 lakhs. Simple enough, right? But wait. You also have to account for the 40 lakhs of your own personal capital that you put down as a deposit. If you had invested that 40 lakhs elsewhere at, say, 8%, you'd be earning 3.2 lakhs. So when you combine the interest you pay the bank with the interest you lose on your own capital, your true total annual interest burden is a massive 8 lakhs every single year.
And here is the crucial point, the staggering financial loss of it all. If you were to just rent that exact same 100 lakh flat, the realistic rental value in the market is only about 20 to 25,000 rupees a month. That's an annual rental cost of roughly 2.4 to 3 lakhs rupees. Remember, your true interest burden just to own it is 8 lakhs. That means by choosing to own rather than rent, you are taking a net financial loss of roughly 5 lakhs every single year. You are literally bleeding money just to maintain the illusion of property rights.
And it gets worse. Here is the chilling reality of that math. To safely afford that true 8 lakh annual cost, meaning you need to allocate an appropriate portion of your income to housing without going totally bankrupt, the math dictates you would need an income of roughly 2.23 lakhs per month. Do you know how many people actually earn that? According to the research, only about 0.5% of the population, less than 1%. The entire concept of the ownership house is a thrust situation that the vast majority of people simply cannot safely afford.
Section 3. Enter the non-ownership zone.
So if the math is madness, what's the alternative? Dr. Darshetkar's bold pivot requires us to completely uncouple our minds from physical real estate. He proposes something called a non-ownership zone. This is a designated area where the housing stock is owned and managed entirely by professional investment companies. Individuals living there don't actually own the physical walls or the floor. Instead, they hold notional paper titles. It's an economic entity. The value is completely detached from the physical asset, treating housing as a fluid financial utility rather than a static physical fortress.
To really grasp this paradigm shift, let's compare the two systems. In our current ownership zones, you have physical ties to the property, which brings continuous friction, right? Maintenance, property disputes, stamp duties, dealing with buyer-seller logistics, the whole shebang. But in non-ownership zones, your housing wealth is just a paper title. Think of it exactly like a demat account for stocks. It's easily tradable, you get indexation benefits based on real estate inflation, but you never actually have to fix a leaky roof or haggle with a broker over a physical flat. You get all the financial upside of real estate with absolutely zero friction.
Section 4. How notional housing works.
Let's guide you through the seamless mechanics of actually living in this new socio-economic framework. The resident experience here is incredibly streamlined. Step 1. You simply apply for housing based on your workplace, your economic capacity, and your specific needs. Step 2. You get allotted a space by the professional management company. And Step 3, and this is definitely my favorite part, you arrive with nothing but your suitcases of clothes, because the accommodations are fully furnished at a fixed cost per day. Imagine the sheer amount of societal wastage we bypass here. No more real estate agents, no more heavy documentation, and no more disruptive interior decoration noise every single time a flat changes hands. It's essentially plug-and-play living.
But wait, you might be wondering, if you don't actually own the house, how do you invest in real estate? Well, citizens can still heavily invest in these housing companies. You have two primary choices. You can invest in non-convertible debentures, or NCDs, which give you a steady fixed interest return. Or, if you want to share in the upside, you can buy equity in the housing company and receive varying dividends. So you are still participating in the real estate economy, but as an agile investor rather than a burdened, trapped homeowner.
Section 5. Redefining the housing market. Now, I know this all sounds like a utopian theory, right? But how do we actually get there from here? Well, the research argues this isn't just some distant dream. It can be initiated right now. The immediate step is to apply the non-ownership model to current redevelopment and slum rehabilitation projects, specifically under regulations like DCR 33(7), 9, and 10. Instead of giving rehabilitated tenants ownership rights, which, let's be honest, often just leads to them selling the asset and returning to slums, they are given relocation rights without ownership, sort of like the 1954 slum clearance scheme. And the ultimate goal for these specific zones: zero state revenue generation. By removing the state's ability to extract stamp duties and premiums from these specific zones, housing finally actually becomes truly affordable.
And that brings us to the climactic thesis of Dr. Darshetkar's paper. We have to completely change our mental model. We need to stop thinking of housing merely as architectural design, engineering feats, or flashy real estate marketing. Housing must be viewed as a socio-economic management subject. And crucially, it must be managed based on the realistic resources available to the society, not just the unlimited desires or needs of the market.
We've covered a lot of ground today, dismantling the math of ownership and exploring a totally DMAT-style future for housing. The current system asks you to take on massive debt, lose out on investment interest, and pay huge premiums to the state, all for a physical asset that just ties you down. So I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought to ponder. If the traditional dream of homeownership is truly just an illusion built on stakeholder greed, are you ready to pack your suitcase and step into the non-ownership zone? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope this completely changes how you look at the buildings around you.